Hi, I'm Alicia.
And this is Rafa.
And this is What Does It Feel Like to Be Intersex, an Intersex Woman? Today's guest is Juleigh Amanda Mayfield, and we are so both excited for her to be here today.
Thank you for joining us.
And we're going to read, We're going to go ahead. I'm going to read her bio. Juleigh Mayfield was born 47 XXY. She has an additional chromosome attached to every pair of her chromosomes chart, neither male nor female, but a configuration of both sexes. She was raised as a male. With the lack of understanding and education regarding her condition, Juleigh struggled with autistic traits, cognitive issues, undiagnosed seizures, learning disabilities, social skills, and boundaries. In addition to being XXY, she was diagnosed with Klinefelter syndrome at the age of 17. Doctors told Juleigh that it was the same thing, but it really is not. Klinefelter syndrome is a disease of the testicles that materializes in XXY males during puberty. XXY occurs during the development phase in utero. Juleigh's main strengths is her story. XXY is a state of being, and she aims to bring humanity and compassion to people's views with XXY and Klinefelter syndrome. Juleigh, welcome. We're so happy to have you here today.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for having me. Always fun to hang out with people from your past.
Yes. And with that, we'll tell you how we met Juleigh. We all worked together at Walt Disney World at the Magic Kingdom in Orlando, Florida.
Yes, we all are entertainment backgrounds, or as I like to use it now that we're 20-something years later, we're a bunch of carnies that we still keep in touch.
Oh my gosh, 20 years. Isn't that crazy? I was thinking about the other day, we all did the 25th anniversary parade, and they're celebrating their 50th anniversary in October. And I can't believe that we're all still alive.
I know, it's so crazy.
How many castle paint jobs later?
And we suffered probably one of the worst.
Yes, the birthday cake.
Candy castle.
I know, that was the worst. That definitely was the worst.
That one received the most complaints. And when they did the Lilo and Stitch, where it was the castle was TP'd with the toilet paper all over it, a lot of people complained about it because it ruined the picture that they wanted to take.
Yeah, that probably did not make a great picture for people's Christmas cards that year.
No.
I used to tell people with the Pink Castle, we got all the stupid questions that you always get. And when people would make reference to it, I was like, you should join us right after parade behind the castle. We are going to serve birthday cake and Coke, the official soda of Walt Disney World, and it'll be great. And I knew people couldn't ever get there because of the way the castle was set up.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing that guest relations got so many complaints that people had missed the cake.
But you're responsible for that.
Responsible for the cake rumor.
That's clever. I love that. I love that.
So leave all the entertainers alone.
Right. We didn't paint the castle. That wasn't our idea, right? So Juleigh, tell me a little bit about being XXY.
Absolutely. So now a lot of people actually find out during pregnancy, because in your 12th week, they give you the option to find out if your baby is going to have a chromosomal variation. But I was born in 1975 in Alabama. So even if there was tons of information available in the 70s, which there was not, even if doctors knew, I'm not guaranteed, there's no guarantee that my family would have gotten that information. And so in the 70s, basically they brought me out and said, you have a boy, take him home, raise him. And there were a lot of things that we now know about being intersex, like falling on the autistic spectrum, being slow to walk, being slow to talk, having ADHD, things that we didn't know back then. There wasn't even a word really for autism in the late 70s.
No.
So my
parents, another word for it that's inappropriate nowadays.
My parents were both educators on the college level, and they just flew blindly. And so I grew up with all of these issues, but we didn't know that they were directly correlated to being XXY.
Can I ask you a question too? Did you talk about it with your parents growing up or anything like that? Or
So my dad claims, I don't remember a lot of it, but my dad claims that when I was about 2 or 3, I kept walking up to him and I would always kind of tug on his shirt and say, "Hey Dad, I need to tell you something." And he would say, "What?" And I would say, "I'm different. I'm sick." And he would say, "You're not sick. There's nothing wrong with you." And I'm like, you don't understand. I'm different. Maybe one day you'll understand."
Wow.
I don't remember saying that to him. But I think that's kind of cool in a way that I probably did know,
You didn't know.
but didn't know how to express that and didn't know how that could be supported at such a young age. I do remember going through all the Rorschach tests and all the cognitive stuff. And I think because they were teachers at a college level, I got to participate in a lot of college studies and doing things with students that were in early education. And maybe that helped. Maybe it helped them. But so at 17, after struggling all through adolescence, not hitting puberty, we moved to Orlando. And I was attending Lake Highland Preparatory School, which my dad was the president for.
I was gonna say, that's a very expensive,
Yes,
exclusive
yes.
school.
And so while there, I was playing football. And we switched from a single division A to a double division A, and all the football players had to go get physicals. So we went to a pediatrician in Orlando, a Dr. Condren, who had studied at the Mayo Clinic and had been a part and had kind of studied Klinefelters and XXY. And he told my parents, "Your son is not meeting certain criteria and milestones that he should have met by now. It doesn't look like he went through puberty. It looks like one of his testicles may not have dropped. I think he may actually have a chromosomal variation. We should probably test."
Wow.
And so they tested for it. And then he came back out and he had a meeting, I guess, with my parents and said, all of the things that he's done, it's a miracle that he's able to perform like that, because most people that are born this way mentally and physically are stunted in a way. And that was just predicated on some of the information that he'd grown up with as a doctor, which we now know is not even true, but that's kind of the push that he was pushing. And he told my parents, he said, "In actuality, you probably should have aborted him."
Oh, wow.
And my parents said, "We never would have done that."
No.
And he said, "Well, but you're kind of, even though he's 17, his life is going to be so much harder now. So we'll put him on testosterone and we'll try and regulate and make him a little more masculine." And so I went on a lot of testosterone. And even when I was at Disney, I was wearing patches under costumes and getting shots every 2 weeks. And that was really affecting my mental and mood swings and just all the things that come from hormone replacement therapy. So in my 20s, after I left Disney, I'd moved to New York. And while I was in New York, I had a prostate cancer scare. And the doctor I went to in New York through Actors Equity said, "I don't know anything about genetics or chromosomes, but you probably should get off the testosterone because that's probably what caused the early prostate scare. And if you can deal with no hormones, let's just do that, because you don't want to have any major issues in your 40s, like liver failure or anything like that." So for many years, I wasn't on any kind of hormone replacement therapy. And then I was in LA, and in my 30s, I lost all of my teeth and had bacteria that was in my jawline. So I had to have total reconstructive jawline surgery done and all of my teeth removed. And then I had to get dentures because my structure won't support implants.
Oh my God.
Then I almost lost a leg due to a spider bite. Then I had another issue. And then I went to England in 2015, and I went over there to audition for Game of Thrones. So I spent 3 months in Ireland and Scotland and London. And while I was in Ireland, I got bit by something on my second toe on my left foot.
What is going on?
And by the end of that trip, I had to have the toe removed and part of my foot removed. And the doctor that did the surgery in London came in and said, "We need to talk." He said, everything your body's been going through in the last couple of years is directly tied to you being XXY. Absolutely. Your autoimmune issues, everything. And he goes, they don't study it in the United States like we study it in the UK and Australia and Japan. He goes, they really don't even use the information we send them. And that's very evident in the cases we've already studied and seen. He said, when you get back to America, I implore you to eat and obtain everything you can on being XXY. Good information, bad information, hateful information, recent research, just chew it all up because it may be what saves your life. So I went back home and rehabbed with my parents and started to really research what it meant to be XXY, because you figure when I found out at 17, I was on my way to college and I didn't care. Like I literally was like, I'm still alive. And what I currently know, I'll probably burn off with beer and alcohol and drugs in college. So I didn't care, but here I was in my early 40s and it absolutely was becoming detrimental that I know about it and that I research it and find out about it. So I joined a couple of Facebook groups, became a moderator. And then in 2018, they were doing a study on male XXYs at I can't even think about it. The NIH, National Institute of Health in Bethesda, Maryland. And so they paid for me to go there for a week. And it was literally like taking your body apart. I don't know what they were using the information for because they don't discuss the protocol, but they were saying to me, we'll send you home with a blueprint for the rest of your life. And so I thought, sure, I'll do it. I'm not married. I'm single. I don't have kids. I'll do it for the future of the intersex community. I'll take one for the team and go to the study. So I went and did the study, and for a whole week they were doing MRIs, MRIs with contrast, MRAs with contrast, ultrasounds, 6 hours of cognitive learning. So having to go back and do the Rorschach test and all of the things that I remember from being a kid. There were parts of it that felt a little Stranger Things. Like I remember saying, if they asked me to crush this Coke can, I may check out and go home. Like it was intense. Yeah. And by the third day, they had said, most of the people that come and do this study have a mental breakdown.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, I'll be fine. I worked at Disney for all those years.
You're like, I worked in entertainment at Disney. I got this.
I was like, if I can get 80 parades in a day and park sets, then I'm good to go. So that Wednesday we did hormone draws, and I went in to do the hormone draws, and what they were testing for is every 15 minutes they were checking your hormone levels. And so men and women produce testosterone and estrogen, obviously at different levels, but for a man in his 40s, your testosterone levels should be above 800 and growing. And then your estrogen levels should be above 400 and growing.
Okay.
So my medical team came in of 8 doctors that were studying me, and they said, we need to talk. They said, you know enough about you now that you were born XXY with an extra chromosome, not enough characteristics to be male or female internally. You had breast tissue in your teens, or gynecomastia as they call it. They diagnosed you with Klinefelters because they said one of your testicles didn't drop. They were like, but let's break it all down for you. They said, it's only Wednesday and we've already figured out that you have no Adam's apple or diminished, because everybody has an Adam's apple, but yours is severely diminished. You have breast tissue. We don't think you have Klinefelters because, in fact, one of your testes is an ovary that never dropped. Your testes and ovary are both located up where your ovaries would have been had you been born fully female at birth. You also have precancerous cells in your pelvic floor. Your pelvic floor is that of a female. You have half a uterus, half a pancreas. You need to have basically a hysterectomy when you go back to Orlando, and you also now have lupus and osteoporosis of the lower back and spine.
Oh, wow.
Oh my goodness.
There's not a cure for that.
Right.
We feel like, now let's talk about your hormones. So then they said, those are the levels your hormones should be at. They said, we actually don't know how you walked into the building on Sunday. And I said, what do you mean? And they said, your free range testosterone that your body is creating is 7. And it should be above 800.
Yeah.
Right.
And your free range estrogen is 40. And it should be above 400. We don't
So
know
you're
how
like
your body's
a wisp.
able to even do any of this. Your blood sugars are extremely high, which intersex people tend to have higher blood sugars. We wouldn't call you diabetic because everything else in your body is clean and functioning. Your liver's functioning, your kidneys are clean. They were like, it's interesting that your blood sugars are way over 500 on the daily. And when you're
That
sick
is
and
high. Wow.
Did they say that that had anything to do with having half of a pancreas or anything like that, or issues?
well, no, because they say I don't have diabetes.
Okay.
So then they said, I told them about how when I was a baby in the womb, my mom said I would stretch and they just thought it was like my foot stretching. And so my mom and dad nicknamed me Thumper as a baby. And the NIH said, actually, you suffer from epilepsy and nocturnal seizures and you were having them in the womb. We believe.
Oh, wow.
So when you were shaking, that was you seizuring. And had anybody known about it and told your parents then, they would have again said, terminate.
Yeah.
And so they said, look, lupus and osteoporosis, there's no cure, but we can slow it down. But that's going to require you to go on a ton of estrogen, which your body clearly responds to a little bit better than the testosterone. And I said, how much are we talking? And they said 38 to 42 milligrams a week. And I said, but that's going to cause me to swing to the full female end of my spectrum. What if I just went home because I've created a life as Bradford and I have an acting career and I'm doing all these great things. What if I just go home and have the ovary and testicle removed and not do hormone replacement and then have the cancer cells removed and the hysterectomy? What if I do that? And I said, you can do that. That's absolutely your choice. But if you trust us, and we are some of the top doctors in the country, we feel that if you don't go on the estrogen, you'll be dead by 48.
Oh, wow.
Oh my gosh.
And so they said, it's not really a big decision. You probably have a lot to think about and you probably need to go back to the hotel and contact your parents. But in the end, you're probably not done living your life, and come back tomorrow and we'll start the estrogen therapy.
Yeah.
And I went back to the hotel and I think I had like 4 bottles of wine before I had to call my mom and dad.
Yeah.
And liquid courage.
I talked to all my siblings and they were like, look, it's your life, it's your decision, and then my mom and dad, my mom kind of struggled with it a little bit. My dad said, how many years do you get if you swing to the female end? And I said, I don't know. The doctors said they're not in the business of guessing, that's not their cause, but that they think I can get another 10 to 16 years out of it. And my dad said, well, it's a no-brainer. I'd rather lose you as my daughter in 10 to 16 years than to lose you as my son in 5.
Right.
So you're going to go back in tomorrow and say, I want the estrogen. And I went in the next day and had a lot of questions for my medical team. Some were, am I going to be ugly? What am I going to look like? And they said, well, what does your mom look like? What does your sister look like? And then they said, you'll look like that. One of the doctors said, show him what you look like in drag. And he was like, you'll look like that, but probably a lot prettier because the estrogen.
A lot better.
Yeah.
I remember last time I saw you in drag.
And you are gorgeous. You are beautiful.
They said, we need to make sure the mental is there, because what's going to happen, because you're already intersex, you're unlike trans. A trans person, it would take them a couple of years to kind of fall into that transitional phase. They said for you, it's going to happen fast.
Oh, wow.
Like 6 to 7 months in, you'll hit menopause and you'll go through hot flashes and your body will start to change and the fat distribution will shift and everything will start to kind of happen for you. And they said that's going to be a huge toll on your mental. So we need to make sure that you're okay. And I looked at the doctor and I said, basically, you're saying that I've been in a Pinto for the last 43 years and everything that could be wrong with it is wrong with it. The paint's faded and scratched and dented and
your rear ended, you'll explode.
Falling down and the windshield wipers are broken.
You'll explode.
You'll explode. But you're about to give me a BMW S-Class to finish the race. And I said, so the vessel's changing. You know, the car is changing. The body of the car is changing so I can finish the race, but the driver is still the same.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's still the same soul. I'm just getting a better vehicle to finish the race in. And he said, I love that analogy. You're ready. Go home.
I agree 100%. That's beautiful.
We started, and here I am 3 years later, you know, and probably
how-
in the best health I've ever been in.
So how do you feel about now being a woman, you know, changing to a woman?
It has been interesting. I definitely feel blessed being able to have lived my life as both. I do laugh. I think I told John Giospano, I was like, crap, why couldn't I have changed when I worked at Disney? I could have been on a float waving and living my best Aurora life. So we just laugh about that. But I think change happens when it's supposed to happen. I think that I wouldn't have been able to deal with the change at an early age, but I'm a lot wiser, and my wisdom has brought me to this point in life. It's been very interesting. I definitely feel smarter. I don't want to say that women are smarter, but I just...
I would say wiser. I would use wiser.
I think smarter is good.
I use that.
Not for wiser. She doesn't know.
I mean, that shift has been phenomenal. I've also gotten to see a lot of the things that women have struggled with through my whole existence, which it is definitely a man's world. Yeah. The fact that women have to use their beauty and their sexuality often to get what they want, whether that be in a very male-driven career or whether that be just in life in general. And then oftentimes, because we do that, we're judged and put at a different level of equalness. So I've gotten to see both sides, and that's a blessing. Can be a curse too, but it's been more of a blessing. I enjoy this vessel. I do enjoy this vessel. I just still feel split sometimes, which I always have. There are times when I still feel like I want to drink a beer and watch college football and scratch my pubes. Sorry, I don't mean any stuff. But I mean,
I love that.
I definitely feel like that. And then there are moments where I want to lay in bed and eat bonbons and dream of, you know, a white wedding with a 10-carat engagement ring. Yeah. So, I mean, there's a little bit of both. It's been interesting. I'm happy to be alive. And in all honesty, I said on TikTok the other day, had they walked in on that day and said, we have to give you this to survive, but it's going to turn you into a Jack Russell Terrier, I would be saying woof woof right now.
Right.
My life was over. So it didn't matter what vessel I was going into. It just mattered for me that I had the opportunity to maybe live past 48 and to live a better quality and quantity in this lifetime.
Well, and think of now you're going to be able to make a difference for other XXY to be an advocate. I love that.
And other intersex. And I love that. I love hearing from other people. TikTok really exploded in the last week for me because I posted a video how I wasn't trans. And I ended up getting 80,000 new followers over the weekend. It's opened up the door for a lot of people that are intersex to walk in and say, where do I get the help I need? Where can I go? My son is this, or my daughter is that.
Yeah.
Where do we need to be? And it's just been, it's really been a blessing to be able to extend that hand and also be one of the very few advocates in the country that is advocating for unnecessary surgeries on minors and a better place for us to be moving forward.
I had a question, which I think that's something that worth actually, before I ask the question, I think that's great. And it's something that you should celebrate. You're using this as a platform to help others and give back through your experiences. And that's fantastic. 80,000 followers. I'm jealous. Oh my goodness.
Well, I mean, I have 80,000 new followers, Rafa. I'm
over the weekend. On top. Okay. I stand corrected.
Over the weekend.
Maybe go on TikTok now and follow you. But my question is, and you know, and maybe because I'm looking at it through the spectrum of a gay man's eyes, there's always a struggle, right? What were some of the challenges that you had to face because of going through trying to navigate being intersex, at the same time educate others that are probably ignorant to it or rudely naive about it, you know?
I think it's important first to point out that I've always said, I don't think it's necessarily ignorance if you just never heard of it, right? If it's new to you in a learning capacity, then I don't deem you as stupid or ignorant. You're literally asking because you just don't know. And that's the great thing about education is you're planting that seed, and hopefully they'll take that seed and run with it and go read or go research or just ask questions, right? We all grew up in that period where teachers would say, no questions, dumb, ask it, you know,
Right.
and try and get through it together. So that's key to me. You know, education is key. And I say that all the time. I'm changing perceptions for a better tomorrow. You know, my sister, who also worked at Disney, Courtney, one of her favorite quotes has always been, be the change you want to see in the world. And I think I'm doing that, but it's important to do that because that's the way we move as people or grow within our own lives, but also as a conscious society. One of the hard things is that there is a lot of misinformation out there and poor information. For example, even within our own community. So the NIH came out in 2020, June of 2020, and said you can no longer call XXY Klinefelter syndrome. And the reason behind that is Klinefelter's is a disease of the testes. You're not going to know if you have that until you hit puberty, and only XXYs can have it. But not every XXY is going to be born with a full set of testes. Some are born with one ovary and one testes. Some are born with two ovaries. So you can't really call it Klinefelter syndrome anymore, and they're trying to get away from that. And so one of the trade-offs is that a lot of people are like, no, it's Klinefelter's, and I'm not both, and I'm not intersex, and I have a very male life, and so you have to deal with all of that, you know, because you're not trying to recreate the wheel, you're just trying to shift old integrated research.
Right.
2% of the world's global population are intersex. And out of that 2%, that's 2% that made it, right? That's 2% that aren't aborted or terminated.
Wow.
Yeah, think about that. That's a good way to put it. How about other people that were probably forced to have an assignment at birth, or those that were terminated as well? That's a whole nother.
Correct.
Factor, yeah.
So when you say 2%, people go, oh, well, you know, that's a big number, but it's not a big number. And you go, but think about it. There's 7.76 billion people on the globe at the current moment. 2% would be 153.4 million people are intersex.
Oh, wow.
That's a whole nother country.
Yeah.
Now, when you think about America, and we have about 8 million, maybe a little bit more, that's still a huge chunk of people. And they're not just in America, but only 6% of that 2% will ever find out that they have the chromosomal variations that would make them intersex.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Now, part of that is because the research that's being done in America, which we've already talked about, is not prolific, is pushing old stereotypes.
That's correct.
They still use research from the 60s that say that if you have a chromosomal variant, XXY, XXX, XYY, XO, any of those, and you allow your child to grow up, that more than likely, by the time they reach adulthood, they're going to be pedophiles or criminally insane or
I know.
I'm so done.
Jailed. And you think that's so not true.
Yeah. Exactly.
And they're using all these scare tactics to say, just get rid of them because they don't fit into that binary of XX or XY. And here I'm sitting here thinking, don't do unnecessary surgeries on our youth. Allow them to hit puberty and then have a say in what you do to their body, because what you do early on can be life-shattering and life-changing. Also, why aren't you studying us? Because if I have really high blood sugars and don't have diabetes and the rest of my body is not shutting down, why are we not being researched to find a cure for the people that are shutting down at 120
That's
Right.
right.
or 80.
Right.
You know, so I'm like, maybe there's something to be said about the people that are intersex, and you're not researching us. You're just getting rid of us because you don't understand how to treat us or deal with our issues.
I'm going to sound naive here, but my partner is into shamanism, and he told me that you know, in many Native American cultures they see 5 sexes, and I don't know if you've heard of that as well. You know, you
I
have
have.
the spectrum of the extreme feminine and the extreme masculine, slight
Yeah.
masculine, slight feminine, and then the both in the middle.
Yeah. So oftentimes people say, oh, you're chimera. I'm not chimera. Chimera is 2 sets of DNA. So I'm not chimera. I just have that extra chromosome that's attached to every single one of my chromosomal pairs.